It's me, Rebecca. I was going to make a shorter video this week, but I wanted to review some of our concepts as well, so it's going to be a little bit longer. Um, but I did want to start off with the overview of what to expect for this week. I know we are already at Tuesday now, so let's see what's on tap. So we have a lot of videos this week, but most of them are pretty small. We do have there's three short videos from Genevieve Clay. Um, yeah, there's three. They are supposed to be giving you kind of an overview of what it might be like to have people make assumptions on your capabilities or uh, status based on how you appear or on other issues of prejudice. So take a look at those. You're going to want to look at those and then answer your discussion question based on that. There are two discussion questions this time around, so they're both due, your initial response is due tomorrow. The first discussion post is about those three short videos. I think the longest one is like 8 minutes long. And they're pretty well done, I think. The second discussion board post is going to be about the common ground strategy. So there's a week 5 video called Common Ground, and it's actually done by Jen Cullen, who is a professor here at the MSW program. She's actually, I think, the director now. She is going through the exercise with a group of students, and it is the framework in which you frequently try and communicate in a facilitated setting. So if you're looking to be a couples therapist, for instance, it's going to be a really interesting strategy to start utilizing to get everybody's voices heard. And hopefully that video gives you a good insight on how to really use that strategy in a way that is going to be effective. I wanted to also cover our readings. Our readings are really important this week, so that's why I originally wanted to have kind of a shorter video. I wanted you guys to have the opportunity to really delve into it. Specifically, I really like the Lagar reading. I think coming from, sorry, my partner just told my dogs that I wasn't talking to them, and it made me chuckle. The Lagar reading really puts into a frame of mind working with clients in a person first type of uh, mindset. It's vital because for me, working in disabilities, pretty much since my undergrad, except for a few short stints in other areas, you see a lot of people who are discounted based on their diagnosis or based on their status as an addict or based on their status as a person who's incarcerated or a person who is impoverished or a person who's older and might be experiencing dementia. We use sometimes social workers use these as um, a rationale for why that person needs someone like us to look out for them. But these readings are really about allowing us to give that person the reins and allowing all of our clients to really head their own charge and make sure that they are the ones who are calling the shots and pointing the direction of where to go. And we are really taking a backseat to them and making sure we are giving them the opportunities to get to the places they want to go in the most adaptive and healthy way. So anyway, that was kind of a tangent. I'm really passionate about the readings this week, and so I really wanted you to have the opportunity to read them in depth. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. You guys are going to have a process note that is going to be due this Sunday. I am excited to hear how you feel about the readings for this week in particular. I just think a lot of times we get into social work to help others and forget that no one knows how to help themselves like the person. And so if you ever have had to work with somebody who's mandatorily with you, for instance, when I was working in foster care for one of my internships, it was really hard to get the child or the youth to join with me and really champion the goals because they didn't want to be there. Their goal was to go home and everything be normal, and your goal is mm, make their experiences the least intrusive as possible and make sure that they have all the opportunities that they can. Like you kind of have to meet the person where they're at. And so those readings are really about getting there. Um, if you've ever found yourself saying like making decisions for them, this is the reading for you because it's really about letting the person take charge. And as you matriculate, you'll start learning other strategies specifically for that. I highly recommend the addictions course. You'll learn a lot about motivational interviewing there, and that's typically one of the only empirically proven strategies to working with folks who are dealing with addiction. And the rationale is because if you don't want to change, it's very hard to change someone. And so you have to figure out what somebody wants to change, right? Like nobody wants to stagnate. Nobody wants to never grow or not be better than they are. So how do they want to be better and help them in that way? Um, Another tangent. So that's that. I want to make sure you have a clear outline of what this week's looks like. So you have 2 discussion posts. Those initial responses are due Thursday. You have the responses for those posts due Sunday. Sunday, you also have a process note due. If I keep calling out a process recording, it is because you guys will do them a lot. And so I'm just mixing up the words. Other than that, you're going to meet with your small groups. It's really mostly about at this point getting your presentations together. If you have any questions about it, let me know. But just so you know, one of my dogs got in. I don't know how that happened. So just so you know, the small group presentation, you're really going to want to probably chunk it out a little bit, come up with different places or different tasks and dividing and conquering because you guys have 5 people for potentially from very far away. So I wanted to go over nonviolent communication because in a lot of the process notes that I got back or in conversations with you individually or in the mid-semester evaluation, a lot of folks said that they didn't feel really comfortable with nonviolent communication. And I want to make sure you guys do, for one, because it's probably going to be a pretty good strategy to utilize in your group presentations, but 2, because it's one of the chief ways we talk to each other in a way that gets things accomplished. And so if you're struggling with your group or in this class, or you're struggling with your family, or you're struggling with utilizing this in practice, I want to make sure that you feel comfortable with it. So I've tried to kind of simplify it into a little more digestible parts and want you to know that it doesn't have to be everything that Marshall Rosenberg had it to be. We take what we can from everything, right? Like we don't necessarily need to. Sorry, I'm coming back here for the rest of it. So I want you to at least get a good handle on it so that you can utilize it in practice. And then as you get more comfortable with it, it's going to feel more organic and less formulaic. This is how I typically talk to many people. Actually, I think I've said that my partner's in this class, but obviously a different section. I'm obviously not. They are professor. That would be horrible. But they are in the class, and so they're reading the readings, and all of a sudden said, "This is why you talk the way you do," and it is the way I talk the way I do. And this is typically how I try to communicate my needs. I have struggled my entire life with really being able to speak up when I had needs. My whole family was told that you don't take help and you don't voice anger. We're not an anger family, we're a resentment family. So, like, if you have a problem, stuff that deep down and then just be mad for a long, long time is typically how my family still, to a certain degree, does things. But I, going through this class and going through some of my recent life experiences, have been able to adopt this strategy as a way to really communicate when my needs aren't getting met. So I simplified it as much as I possibly could for everybody to be able to utilize this in a way in your internal dialogue, right? So the first questions you should ask yourself, are you upset? Are you angry? Are you sad? Are you any sense of upset? Like not just upset like anger, but also upset like disappointed, upset like frustrated, upset like alienated, lonely, sad. All of those things are um, emotions that are from the lack of a need. So you just want to identify, am I not feeling right? Am I unhappy? If I'm unhappy, then it's time to move on. The next question, and it sounds facetious or sarcastic, but it's not. Do you want to be? And by that I mean, do you want to be upset? Because you can be upset, right? Like, if you've ever experienced trauma or violence, chances are you wanted to be upset for a while. Like, you are not ready to forgive or to be at peace or to feel safe until a decent amount of time had passed because you are completely valid in your feelings. You're allowed to be upset, right? You're allowed to be angry that somebody did something that impacted you that way. You're allowed. And so it's really important to know for yourself if you're ready to move on or not, if you're ready to really approach whatever's upsetting you. Now, let's say, 20 out of 21 times, which is the most random ratio I could think of. Let's say like 20 out of 21 times, it's something silly, like the dishwasher hasn't been emptied in 4 days. That is upsetting you. So that's probably not something you want to hold on to. Like, that's not really an anger for the sake of like injustice as much as it's like a disposition. So most times it's not going to be something that you want to hold on to, but if you want to hold on to it, that's completely within your right. For instance, um, both my parents passed away like within the last 2 years. uh I don't think I'm ready to not be upset about that. Like, I completely respect people who are able to mourn, grieve, move on, and feel content. But I'm still furious. Like, neither of them got to live to 70 or 65 even, and that's just so frustrating to me because they were the two like best humans I've known, and neither of them got to see old age. So yeah, I'm reasonably ticked, and I'm probably not going to be ready to let that go for a while. And so that's my emotion, and I'm gonna hold on to that. So, but most times, right? Most times you're completely ready. I am upset and I want this to be resolved. All right. If that is, it's time to move on to the next step. Do you want others to be resolved? Do you want others to be happy? Like, not in a facetious way. Again, like if you are resenting somebody, let's use the dishwasher example again. If you are resenting somebody for not taking the dishes, not putting the dishes away, do you want them to suffer? Or are you upset with them in the way that you need to get a little bit of revenge? Like, maybe not like violent revenge, but like take all the dishes and hide them revenge. Like, if you're feeling that kind of upset, it's going to be hard to keep moving on. And I'm not saying that that's good or that's bad. I mean, everybody's decisions are their own. But if you're not in a place where you want to collaborate and join, it's going to be really hard to keep going nonviolent because you're really going to be the next steps opening yourself up and making a request, and that's got to come from a place of peace. So you have to feel like, yes, I'm upset. I want to be resolved, and I want to resolve it collaboratively with the other person. Make sense? Also, I care that they feel resolved because it's not enough to go to somebody and be like, I demand you resolve something. You have to want that person to get their needs met as well as your needs. Okay. So this is where the part that gets tricky and is probably where you're getting hung up with. The first step is to name your feeling. And this is the most challenging one because it is so easy to name violent feelings, and it's hard to get a handle on what things are really what your emotion is. And so my advice to you while you're still figuring that out, well, that's why I sent everybody that list, the list that had like the different emotions. I emailed it, and it was like, if your needs are met or satisfied, if your needs are satisfied, and then if your needs are not satisfied, like you can probably start with that list, and it'll probably cover most of the emotions you're feeling. A lot of them are synonymous, but what you want to make sure is that your feeling is something that is an emotion and not a verb. So I'm feeling attacked isn't a feeling, because attacked is a verb. I'm feeling judged, same thing. You really want to isolate your emotion to just how you're feeling and not how somebody else is impacting, or how somebody else is controlling that, because the whole premise of nonviolent communication is that you want to be resolved. So nobody can make you feel something, because you are using this skill to resolve yourself. Does that make sense? So the dishwasher example, that was so random, and now I feel like I'm going to commit to it for the rest of the thing. And we both put dishes away, so that wasn't like Fortean. Like, I don't have this issue, but I can see people having this issue, I guess. So you might feel frustrated or overwhelmed. I would probably say overwhelmed, because, or flustered. All of those are good words. All of those things are things you feel that are isolated to you, right? Like, your feeling of overwhelmedness isn't controlled by anybody else. And truth be told, in most situations, you can control that. If I'm feeling frustrated or overwhelmed, I can chunk out what I'm doing, or I can better plan my time. Um, but I'm feeling frustrated. My feeling. I highly, highly, highly suggest using that list. It was found on the nonviolentcommunicationcenter.org. I can send that link out to you if you'd like. And so that site has a bunch of resources. And so that's actually Marshall Rosenberg's training center. He is now deceased, but before then, that he established. All right, so you have the feeling, or feeling frustrated. You have to think of the need. Feeling frustrated. So what's your need here? Dishwasher example, hindsight, feels like a poor choice. Your need is probably something like, I need to feel supported. I need respect, something really fundamental. There's also a list of needs on nonviolent communication, and I think something to consider is to really start off with those words that you find there, because people hear the word need and think it's demand, and it's not. You have to need closure, or you need intimacy, right? Those are needs that if somebody can't fill for you, you're still going to fill somewhere else. Yeah, if you're not getting support at home, maybe you hire somebody, maybe you leave the relationship you're in, maybe you get a roommate. Chances are it doesn't go to those extremes, but if you have a need, you're going to have to fulfill it, even if the other person isn't able to do it. That's what a need is. You can't need I don't know, I can't think of a good example. It's not fair for me to say, like, I need you to walk the dogs every morning. But I can say, I need some time in the morning to be a human, which mornings for me are not a pretty sight. Not that any other time is, but yeah, no, I'm terrible in the morning. I am grouchy, and it takes me a long time to wake up. And I always joke around with my partner that they're more like a percolator, like they're a coffee maker. They just like spring into action. They're like, let's go. And I'm a slow burner. So anyway, I would probably say if this were an issue of ours, I need some solace in the morning, and then you can make a request, which is the third and final step. Making a request. So you make a request. You guys are getting to see a little bit more of me each time I make one of these videos, I feel like. Um, so you're making a request, and then you work together to collaborate to figure out what's going to be the most successful for you. So for the mornings, it might not be that he walks the dogs, and it's not, in truth. He does get up with the dogs because I'm horrible at waking up. And they go outside and they burn some energy off. So we have found something that works, right? You find that collaborative process. If your need is to wake up slowly, you work together and make a request. Do you think it's possible that you could help me out in the mornings? Do you think it's possible that you could do the dishes once in a while? However, the dishes thing I'm using as a caveat. This is neither here nor there, but for the record, there's a lot of resentment going on in couples about chores. And a lot of times it ends up being something like, you never do any work around the house. And in truth, a lot of people struggle with seeing needs and filling needs by themselves. And so you start thinking, how much of what I need am I assuming the other person already knows? Right? I assume that that person knows I need the laundry done on Sundays. I assume that that person knows that I'm expecting them to take the dishes out. I'm assuming, and all of those assumptions, they build up and you end up miserable. And so the only thing it changes is you. So a huge part of nonviolent communication, it seems really limiting, right? Like you can only choose certain feeling words, you can only choose certain needs, you can only ask for a request a certain way, and you can't make demands. There's a lot of like you can onlys, right? But the point is we've gotten into this place as a culture, and especially for the women out there, as women, we've been told not to make demands, right? Be as uninvasive as possible, but we have needs that need to be met. Like we can't just champion our own lives and take care of every single thing for a household of people. So a lot of folks have gotten into the habit of assuming people know what needs to be done, and oftentimes that is not the case. So to try reframing, which is another skill we learned last week, to reframe it, it might help to think of it as this is a really freeing exercise. Like you can tell somebody you need help in a certain way, or request that somebody do a thing, or request that a group member respects, I don't know, that you disagree politically. You can request a number of things to get your needs met without it having to do with a lot of conflict and aggression. You can move beyond it, you can work with it. And so that is going to be the takeaway from this skill set. You're really going to be able to utilize it in a way that benefits you and gets everybody's needs met with as minimal intrusion, conflict, confrontation as possible. The point is to be non-invasive. The point is to be non-offensive and to be heard in a way that gets progress started. Does that make sense? Anyway, you're going to want to ask yourself those 5 questions. Am I upset? Do I want to be? Do I want to collaborate? What's my feeling? What's my need? What's my request? The feeling and need questions are ones you're probably going to want to start using those tools to start from nonviolent communication to define the feelings and to define the needs, because it gets murky pretty quickly as far as what's a nonviolent expression of a feeling or a nonviolent expression of a need. And so that is it. This whole process is also pretty strongly detailed in the Yoga reading this week, and I might be saying his name wrong, but it's a really good. It reads more like a training than an article. It's a lot of like infographics. But happy reading, happy watching. If you have any questions, let me know. I am available. You have a process note due Sunday, so I'll read more about how things are going, and then in a couple of weeks we'll have your presentations, and so that'll be great. All right, guys, have a great night.